What's the state of your website? If you're looking for a new digital experience platform, or DXP, to run your digital experiences, I have the book for you. The Agile Brand Guide to Digital Experience Platforms is part of my best-selling series of MarTech books. In this book, I explore and demystify DXPs and look at the roles a digital experience platform should play, the different types on the market, as well as how to initially evaluate platforms, then how to best implement a DXP once you've selected it. The book also features a foreword from Rupali Jain, Chief Product Officer at leading DXP provider Optimizely, as well as several other thought leaders in the industry. Learn more and get a copy in print or digital now by going to the Agile Brand Guide website at www.agilebrandguide.com.
Hi, this is Greg. Look for my book, The Agile Brand, on Amazon or on my website at theagile.world. Welcome back to the Agile World podcast. This is Greg Kihlstrom. In the last few episodes, I've been talking about how to create an Agile brand. I've gone through a few different aspects of this, starting with understanding that change is the only constant. That those brands that don't embrace this, that don't ready themselves, that aren't thinking ahead, are going to be left behind if they haven't been already. In the next episode, I talked about identifying when evolutionary versus revolutionary processes are needed. When sometimes small changes, small optimizations can make a big difference versus doing big things that might alienate customers. After that, I talked about making adaptivity and collaboration part of your culture. This means really adapting and adopting an agile process from within, changing an organization to embrace change and be more collaborative, adopt agile processes, not just in a department or two, but really across the entire organization. In the last episode, I talked about how it's not just about channels and mediums and tactics, but brands really need to think about a holistic customer experience, and how, in the case of Chick-fil-A, a few words made a huge difference. Saying please, thank you, and my pleasure actually gave them 4 times the sales of one of their big competitors. In this episode, I'm going to talk about the last aspect of creating an agile brand, listening to, not talking at, customers. A few episodes ago, I talked about a financial client of mine that chose not to be on social media because they really didn't really want their customers to talk bad about them. My advice to them, of course, was that people are probably already talking bad about them if they're upset. But this organization just wouldn't be able to respond or wouldn't be able to really participate in the conversation unless they gave their customers an outlet to do so. This idea that simply putting out good messages and the messages that you want is really goes back to that, what's referred to the Mad Men style of broadcasting. It's great to establish strong branding principles, strong messaging, positioning, really understand your audiences, and certainly advertising and marketing, putting the messages that you want to in front of your customers, teaching them that vocabulary that you want them to use, that's critical. But just as critical these days is to listen to them and refine things or adjust things as needed. It could be little things, it could be big things. It could be listening to what people are saying on Twitter, or it could be looking a little more holistically. One of the things I'm doing lately is working on larger scale customer journey orchestration. So what this means is really looking across a customer experience and measuring things. So anything from the time it takes to complete an action. So let's say performing an e-commerce transaction. How long does it take for someone to go from searching for something to signing up for an account to actually making the purchase? Does that process, is it so long? Are there so many steps in it that it's disruptive? Do too many people drop off? What does that look like? What's the performance over time? Do more people make more purchases the less time that it takes to do something? All of those types of things, using some fairly sophisticated tools that allow us to measure things across channels, across tactics, really help us understand more what the experience is like. So sometimes a customer will give us direct feedback. They'll fill out a form or send an email, make a phone call, and give us direct feedback. But other times we can look at what's happening in the process. And, someone may not complain that something took too long, but they know that it took too long. And they understand that. And they know that when they go to your competitor's site, it takes less time. That's something that sometimes is, someone's not consciously even thinking about it. They just know that the experience is better somewhere else. A lot of times we use things like Net Promoter Score as well to try to measure someone's experience. And it's interesting what you get when you ask someone immediately after a transaction, again, whether it's a purchase, registering for something, really just about anything, and really measuring that and seeing that over time. I think things like Net Promoter Score are really interesting to compare performance over time. So comparing quarter over quarter, year over year. It helps industries with asking really a couple very simple questions. I'm sure you've been asked them hundreds of times at this point, but it helps organizations really try to understand what's going on. Are things getting better with the experience? Are things getting worse? What is someone's perception of the brand? Would they recommend you to someone else? A few simple questions, and you get a lot of information. And just as critical is what you do with that information. Right. So you can listen, you can gather information, you can do all of those things, you can orchestrate journeys and do all of that stuff I described earlier. But what do you do with it? Do you have a process in place that allows you to measure and make optimizations? I think the Agile methodology gives us some frameworks to do that. Again, it's not about measuring something and overnight making a change just on a whim. It's about taking those measurements, looking at them over time, comparing them, and then trying to make reasonable and educated decisions about what to do and how to make things better, and then repeating the process, iterating again and again, continually making things better. I think this is really the benefit of not only the Agile process, but being an Agile brand is that you are continually learning, you're continually wanting to learn. Your organization is adaptive and collaborative. And as you listen and as you respond, your customers see this. They see that they make a recommendation or they have a frustration and it's rectified. That's beneficial to everyone. It's beneficial to you. It's beneficial to your customers. Your customers are more likely to recommend you. It's a win-win situation. In the next few episodes, I'm going to talk about storytelling and Agile brands. Thanks for listening. See you next week. If you enjoyed this episode and found it helpful, please rate the show on iTunes or contact me through my website at theagile.world. You can find my books, The Agile Brand and The Agile Web, on Amazon and on my website at theagile.world.